Hey there, everyone. Before we start the show, we here at Popcorn for Dinner want to give a big shout out to our good friend and illustrator, Kyle Kedzik, for helping us celebrate making it to 40 episodes with some brand new custom artwork, which is now up on all of our social media accounts. We love it. We hope you love it. And if you're looking for some new custom artwork for your business or project, you can look him up on Facebook at Kyle Kedzik, or even drop him a line at kylekedzik@gmail.com. That's KYLEKEDZUCH@gmail.com. Everybody, welcome back to Popcorn for Dinner. This is Jeff.
And Kelly.
Baseball movie month comes to a close this week, and considering the incident of last week, the sort of unintentional meltdown of baseball movies and my reactions to them, this week is I sort of described it as like the perfect antidote to Field of Dreams for me, because Jesus Christ, man, I could do another fucking episode on how much I didn't like Field of Dreams. And so considering our earlier plans for this month, originally had Field of Dreams as the last movie, like we sort of mentioned. It is definitely great that it was not.
Yeah.
So that baseball movie month did not end on such a negative note.
Yeah.
But it's even better than that, because it's like if it had ended on something like 8 Men Out or Bad News Bears, it would have just been like, all right, okay.
Good.
Yeah, exactly. And this week's movie was like, I definitely had not seen it probably since maybe in the year after it came out. I definitely didn't go to the theater, but looking into it.
No, we saw this in theaters.
I do not believe we did that.
I believe
almost
we did.
100% we didn't.
Okay, because I could have sworn we saw this and Draft Day in theaters.
No.
Okay, well, fine.
But the movie this week to end off baseball movie month is the 2011 American biographical sports drama film Moneyball. Oh my God, what a fucking movie. I can't even bury the lead and not get into just how absolutely amazing this movie is in practically every fashion.
Yeah.
It might be carried by how fucking phenomenal Brad Pitt is.
And Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill is great, but man,
Brad Pitt
I understand why Jonah Hill got a nomination, especially sort of in the in the face of what he had been known for up until then, where it was just oh yeah, the goofy foul-mouthed fat kid.
Yeah.
And so in this case, it was just oh my God, look at that.
He can act.
Yeah. And he can, it's not just that he can act, but he can understatedly act. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to be big and brash and whatever to play a good part. 'Cause it's Wolf of Wall Street, just a few years later, he's wonderful in that, and he's not playing a classic Jonah Hill character, but he's loud and he's sort of obnoxious, and he's got that vibe to him where you're oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But in this case, he is he's a little bit more like his tiny role in 40-Year-Old Virgin. If you remember that, when he goes into Catherine Keener's buy it on eBay store, and he's holding up the boots that have the goldfish in them and everything, and he's just I just want to buy them from you right now. She's well, no, you have to buy it on eBay. He's but I'm here and I want to buy them right now. He's totally chill and kind of shy and more aloof, and it works wonders for this character. But fucking Brad Pitt as Billy Bean he's too good. He's so fucking good.
It's unfair.
It really is. It's one of those roles and movies that you could sit and look and maybe make a list of a couple other people who could probably be pretty good in that role or whatever. And a movie that would still be pretty good. There's a lot of it that isn't just based on Brad Pitt that makes it really good. but the fact that he is so perfect
Yeah.
is just like, well, that's the I wanted to, almost was gonna say like nail in the coffin, but that's normally in a bad sense.
Yeah.
He's just that final piece that just pulls
The
everything
cherry on
together.
top.
Exactly, where it's just like, oh my God. Of course it had to be him. It had to. The movie, if people don't know, is a true story for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that they're going to not include or mash together or whatever to make it into a movie.
Yeah.
But it's about the 2002 Oakland Athletics team that, no money, no stars, essentially.
Yeah.
And they have to use the sabermetrics Moneyball system to find the diamonds in the rough players who are more valuable than old-timey baseball thinks they are.
Yeah.
Which is kind of my favorite part of the whole movie is the fact that it's sort of a kick in the dick to that old boys mentality, that opening scene of Billy Bean and the scouts all talking about well, I mean, I know it's not the opening scene because there's them losing and all
And him tossing the radio and then getting out, and instead of grabbing it, he just stomps on
stomping it. Which is fantastic. But like the first sort of big scene, the first really memorable scene, like as soon as it popped up, I was like, oh yeah, okay. Hadn't watched it in years, but as soon as it started, I was like, oh, right, where he just goes off essentially on his scouts. Like, what the fuck are we talking about?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I wrote down how much I loved it and how bullshit those old dudes things were, like, oh, he passes the eye candy test and talking about how, oh, he's got an ugly girlfriend. That means he's got low confidence.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck are these idiots talking about?
Yeah. Like,
It's nonsense. So stupid. And apparently that was like a real sort of quote from someone, but it wasn't confidence that they nicked the guy on for that. But they were like, ugly girlfriend, therefore bad eyesight or something. But it was like legitimately a thing that they were holding against people.
like what?
Yeah, and it's like,
What
God,
if he doesn't care?
yeah, really? It's like, oh, or love. I don't know.
Yeah.
What, like, what the fuck is this all about?
God.
Like, the movie did a great job of painting those people as like stuck in their ways and stupid as I sort of feel so much of baseball is. So I loved that was like, the gist of the whole movie about how it's like shaking it up, changing things, doing things in a new way that everyone else is ignoring because they're so stuck in their fucking ways.
That's not how it's done.
Exactly. And that's like, that's a mentality that I can never fucking like sanction. I can never be behind that.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, but that's the way that it's done. So you have to do it that way.
Yeah.
Like, what? The how would anything ever progress if that was the mindset in everything? It's like, no, but you can't do it that way because you don't do it that way. Like, what? That's not an argument.
I mean, there might be like one or two things that, maybe I'm thinking like scientists, like there's probably certain things that like, no, you do it this way, otherwise it explodes and everyone dies.
Or like paragliding.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? I don't really feel like I need to use these harnesses. Like,
Yeah.
no, you know what? That's the way it's done.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of things that are so wide open-ended and subjective, it's like, this is not how it's done. It's like, unless you're talking about like, I went and scouted the wrong sport. You know what I mean? It's like, so I was checking out the basketball players and I think he would be a great first baseman. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Maybe
like,
that would be weird.
Yeah, like football, okay, if you're looking at the quarterback, see if maybe he can go as a pitcher. Okay,
yeah.
that's a gray line that can be smudged a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I loved that opening scene. I loved the fact that Billy Bean is like immediately displeased with all of this, and I, obviously there was a book that I have not read. I've had many years to read it, never read it. I mean, it's not like I own it and it's sitting there looking at me, but like I've just never really gotten around to it. But yeah, it's him and Peter Brand, which is Jonah Hill's character, which is sort of like the first, at least, I mean, I don't know that much. I did a little bit of research to find, sort of differences between how the real world shit happened versus how the movie portrays it happening or the book or whatever. And Peter Brand doesn't exist. That's not a real person. It was Paul DePodesta was the actual guy who brought this to the attention of Billy Bean and got hired at the Athletics, and they put it all together. But over the course of them like developing the movie, apparently he looked at it and was just like, yeah, this really isn't me anymore. And he also apparently got a lot of negative attention from the book itself,
Oh.
where people like didn't like him because he brought this to baseball.
He's trying to mess with baseball.
Exactly. So he was like, I don't fucking want to go through that again.
Yeah.
And with a big movie now too, so all these other people are gonna hate me.
Yeah.
So he was like, yeah, you know what, just don't use my name or specific likeness or whatever. So Peter Brand is like a sort of an amalgamation of scouts that Billy Bean worked with and this guy DePodesta.
Okay.
Sort of immediately, like when it comes to these kinds of movies where it's like a very specific, like true story sort of thing, I'm kind of always on the lookout for like the strings and how they're making it into a movie versus how things would probably happen in real life. It's like I'm always kind of on the lookout for a scene that feels really movie and not like what that I don't think. And right off the bat, as much as I loved it, that scene where he goes to Cleveland, where Billy Bean goes to Cleveland to sit in the other GM's office and talk face to face about trades that then the Cleveland GM just doesn't want to do. Yeah. I was like, why would they ever do that? Why would they ever fly him all the way out there to be like, you know what? Nah. It's like, you couldn't have fucking called me and said you didn't want to give these guys up. Like
every other time he just calls.
Yeah, exactly. But of course he has to be there so he can see Peter giving them advice and he can get clued into what Peter was doing in order to snag him away to make him his assistant GM. So like that was the one that I really noticed right off the bat. I was like, there's no way that's how that went down at all. There's no way he was.
It's a great scene. But
and wonderful, just like all those looks that Brad Pitt keeps shooting over to Jonah Hill in the corner because it's like he tells the big guy and then the big guy walks over and tells the GM and then the GM tells him, yeah, no, we're gonna hold on to that guy, and he's just like, who the fuck is this guy? And that next scene was one of my favorites when he interrogates him. Essentially, he like tracks him down to his cubicle and he's just like, who are you? Yeah, whose nephew are you? Like, how did you get here? What is the deal? And just like. I don't remember exactly how that scene ends, but he kind of like
they go to the parking garage.
Oh, that's right.
Because he doesn't want to talk about his theories and that around everyone else because it pisses off all the old baseball farts.
I get that was something that I didn't quite get, and I'm assuming it has something to do with the fact that the whole scene in the office with the other GM was put in for the movie. Again, I'm assuming. Yeah. But like. The fact that he tells the GM essentially like which of these players he thinks is like good and that they should hold on to, and the GM listens to him like pretty definitively. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, what did Peter say about that? Okay, no, we're not gonna hold on. We're holding on to that guy. So the idea that he has to talk about this system to Billy Bean like outside of the office is like, but wait, don't they know what he's doing and why they trust his analytics? Like, aren't they doing this right now? Like, why would they let him get stolen away by the Athletics if they were using his system and needed him in order to do it? So it seemed kind of off at the very top where it was like, wait, they don't know what they have in Peter, but they know what they have because they listen to him? I wasn't sure exactly what the deal was there. And again...
Maybe they were like on the fence about the system and then Billy Bean made an offer and that was enough for them to be like, yeah, sure, we'll just keep doing it the way we've been doing it.
I guess, because that was something like I loved the fact that he just calls him and he's just like, I just bought you from the Cleveland Indians, get on a flight.
No, the best is what leads up to that because Billy Bean is hounding him over whether or not he would have taken him in the first round.
Yeah, he wanted the truth.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I would have taken you in the 9th round. No signing bonus, anything. And he's like, yep, you're a real scout. Like, you know what you're doing because you've looked at fucking what I became, which was something that I had absolutely forgotten about this movie. When it went into the flashbacks of Billy Bean as a kid getting drafted and all that shit, I was like, oh my God, that's right. Yeah. Totally forgot about that. But I loved how it played into the story. And it was just, like by the end of it where it was like him or not necessarily the end, but sort of that middle scene when he argues with his like head scout and everything. And he's like, what? So you think because people were wrong about you that scouts suck? Yeah. And I was like, I mean, I kind of would. I'd be a little like pissed off if everyone told me I would be amazing. And then it's like, oh, well, we were totally wrong.
Yeah. Sorry.
And it's like, well, I mean.
You could have gone to Stanford.
Yeah. It was a little, I mean, like. I guess, you still have to put a little bit of the like impetus on Billy Beane himself, but also he was like 18.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a ridiculous thing to be like, oh, by the way, we're absolutely going to draft you in the first round and you're going to come and play for the New York Mets. But if we're wrong about you, you'll eventually just flame out and there goes whatever whatever other thing you thought about doing for your life, just because we were wrong.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm kind of going to agree with Billy Beane on this one. Like, if there's a new way to scout people that will not do that as much, because obviously there's always probably, like, it's hard to, be like, oh, no, yeah, everyone in the first round got an awesome first round talent player. Every team picked a great player for every pick. Like, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But it's like, you can understand where he's coming from with that and why he would be so open to something new, where it's like, so the old fucking style screwed me.
Yeah.
Let's try something else. Yeah. Maybe. I don't know.
This guy knows a way to do it cheap.
Yeah. And I mean, that's obviously the main point of it.
Yeah.
Is like, hey, we can find people that other teams have given up on that they shouldn't have. And figure that shit out. Like I absolutely love every single meeting that they have with the scouts throughout the movie, but especially the first one when Peter's there. And he's just like, he's sitting off in the corner. He hasn't even like said anything. And fucking Brad Pitt just like snaps and points at him. And he's like, me? Like, yeah, when I point at you, that means talk. Yeah. Come on. And just like constantly hammering home the like, getting on base because they what? Get on base. Like, he is so good, and that script is so fucking good. Like, I don't know how much maybe was, Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill like messing around a little bit at all, but like, holy shit.
It definitely looked like they were having fun together.
Oh yeah. And it was just so much fun.
That like first Jonah Hill's first day at the office, and they're going over the like player breakdowns or whatever that Billy asked him to do.
Yeah, he asked him to do like
three. I wrote it down. I asked you to do 3. How many did you do? 47.
Yeah, and then
actually 51. I don't know why I lied just then.
Yeah, like that's something that I can almost feel like maybe was a real detail from the real story. But it almost feels like it was just a really fucking great script. Yeah. Where it's just like, how do you make this guy like both like a super overachiever, like awesome at his job, yet also convey the fact that he is not completely comfortable. Yeah. Where it's like, yeah, he lied about how many he did for no reason. Yeah. And it was like a completely like pointless number to lie about. It's not even like it was like, I did 30. No, actually, I did 60. It was like it was a difference of 4, and he decided to lie about it because he's just nervous about it. Like I thought that was hysterical. And that whole like I don't quite have like specifics from the scenes written down throughout this. Like I didn't take that many notes because I was just so fucking into it again. Like watching it again was so great. I did make a note as soon as fucking Philip Seymour Hoffman showed up.
Yes.
I knew he was in it. Like it wasn't like, oh my God, that's right.
Yeah.
Him and Chris Pratt were 2 of the big ones where it was like, I know you're in this movie. I'm just waiting for you to show up. And as soon as they do, you're like, yes. Thank you. They're so good. Yeah. Philip Seymour Hoffman. I fucking miss him. I wish he was still around. I would love to see what kind of antics he was getting into now.
Seriously.
He's so good all the time. Like the fact that he can play so many different things, and him playing this ball manager is exactly but it's like it is exactly as convincing as when he played like the crazy cult leader in The Master, or every fucking role that he's in. Dusty, he just becomes it. Yeah. I mean, really, like he's such a goofball in that, and you fucking believe it 100%. There's nothing false about that performance. But at the same time, obviously many years later, but at the same time, he plays a crusty old MLB manager, and you 1000% believe it as well.
Oh, absolutely. Like that was one of my notes, was like, especially with him, like specifically having like shaved head. Like,
oh yeah,
just his look, it was like, you look like a ball manager.
Absolutely. And especially like the like not art department, but like the wardrobe and everything, like the stuff that they put him in, the like striped polo shirt tucked into jeans with his belly and everything. He was so that guy.
Oh yeah,
is so good. Chris Pratt, obviously at this point he was a couple years into Parks and Rec, so it's like he was a guy who was known at least a little bit.
Yeah,
he wasn't a Marvel guy yet, but he was out there. And so seeing him, it's not, I mean, obviously he's not as dumb as some of the characters that he would play.
Yeah.
But he still has that like, aw shucks kind of guy to him, where it's just like, okay. He's not cocky or mean or anything like that. He just has that like lovable puppy dog kind of thing. just like, oh, look at him.
You're a little naive, but you're sweet.
The one dude that I had absolutely, like, if you had given me a thing of like, which of these people are in Moneyball, and you gave me a list of 3 people and Spike Jonze was one of them, I would not have picked Spike Jonze playing Robin Wright's new husband and everything. I was like, oh my god, it's Spike Jonze. Like, he's not really an actor in that much stuff. Like, he's more so director, or he's on Jackass sometimes, hanging with those guys. That's right. So every time Spike Jonze pops up in something, I'm just like, yes.
Thank you. He was one of the guys that was like, he looks familiar, but then I completely forgot to look it up.
Yeah, well, he just has that like one scene, so it's like,
it was.
I loved the fucking energy of like the ball club once Billy like is so fully in on this shit, where he just does not take crap from anyone anymore about it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, we're just doing it, and if you're not on board, you're not fucking on board.
Yeah.
I loved that. I loved the scene when the main scout finally like talks back to him about it and gives him a bunch of shit. And then I forget exactly what he says. He's like, I'm not going to fire you. And he goes, fuck yourself, Billy. He's like, now I will. And then he just walks to his scouting room and he's just like, do you have any experience? The guy's like, kinda. He's like, you're my new head scout.
Yeah.
Like, just fucking give it to whoever, because I just need people who are in on this.
Yeah.
So I love all of that kind of shit.
When he told Billy to go fuck himself, that was the second fuck of a PG-13 movie.
Yeah, I noticed that too. And I was like, well, they always bend the rules a little bit, especially when there's like absolutely no violence or sex or anything
drugs.
else. Yeah, exactly. It's like there's really
mention of alcohol. I don't think there really is any.
That's
in the
about
movie.
it. They talk about.
No, Brad Pitt does drink a little bit, but
yeah, I was gonna say they talk about Jeremy Giambi. Like doing drugs and whatever, but they just talk about it. Yeah. It's not even like shown or anything. So I'm sure they were given a lot more leniency with that.
Yeah.
But what was the first one? Oh yeah, it's Brad Pitt saying, "What the fuck are we even talking about?" at that first meeting.
Yeah.
But like, as much as I was totally on board with it, and obviously because you're seeing it from the perspective of the 2 guys who like fashioned it and put it together and are like, oh man, this is how we're gonna do it. Seeing the scouts get theirs, or at least that one guy who's like, fucking, we've been doing this forever, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, get out of here. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
It's like, what are you really going to do? You're going to put together an equally mediocre ball club with your scouting ways, then this one might be too. Like, really, at the end of the day, that's what it's going to come down to, because you're not going to be able to get any big players because you can't afford it. So you're just going to get the same fucking mediocre guys. Like, at least let Billy put a mediocre team together that might work.
Yeah.
Instead of your just random ass, like, oh, that guy pops.
Yeah.
He hits the ball. You hear that all around the stadium. Which I kind of liked that there was sort of a callback to that at the end of the movie. But it was about a guy that they that they didn't wind up on the team because it was their scouting instead of Hatterberg.
Yeah.
But of all of that, like, as much as I loved his like sticking it to everyone, we're doing it my way thing, I could not help but feel terrible for Art, for Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, because when his like first thing is like, I'm on a 1-year contract, that sucks.
Yeah,
it's like whatever happens this year is that's going to determine if I'm getting another job after this. And I loved his comment to him after he gives him the roster, built the way that they are trying to build it, but he keeps playing the wrong first baseman according to their system.
Yeah.
And he's just like, Billy, I am coaching this team as a like job interview for next year.
Yeah, in a
so
way
that I can defend it at a job interview.
that I can explain.
Yeah. So it's like I totally understood it. And I think having Philip Seymour Hoffman made it even more like, you know, like you could definitely feel for him because he's just like, he's so like, he's angry sometimes, but he doesn't seem, you know, completely irrational about it or just like, oh, go fuck yourself or anything like that. He's just like, Billy, what the fuck am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
I have to play a team that looks good and can play baseball, and this guy can't play the position you want him to play.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I don't give a shit. Just put him in. And, you know, they put this big old Moneyball team together with all these guys that are, you know, cast-offs from other teams. Nobody's particularly confident in them.
Yeah.
And then they do the opening day. And as that whole sequence was starting, I was like, all right, opening day, disaster or triumph? And then it was, next note is just disaster, of course.
Yeah.
Like, no way it could have been anything else. Like, there's no way this story is that Moneyball, you know, gets them to like the best record immediately in the world. Like, you know, there's just no way that's how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things I kind of like about the fact that it's like a historical movie is that like, you know, these sorts of things, or at least you know that they're probably right.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to assume, I didn't look into their season to see if they lost the first game, but I'm assuming they did. Like, there's nothing online about like Moneyball got the whole season wrong. Like, no.
It's
all
like
of that shit happened.
They won 3 off the bat. Like,
yeah, no, it's like you know that that's right. So as you're watching it, you're just like, of course, it has to be a disaster right off the top, so that people, you know, because then people aren't going to buy into it.
Yeah,
and they're going to say that it's a failure immediately, and they just have to persevere.
Yeah,
and that's basically just the drive of the whole movie, is that it's like everyone is like, guys, it's not working, and they're just like, let it work.
Yeah.
Just give it some. There's the sample size isn't there yet to see if it's actually a failure or not.
And then Billy Bean takes dramatic action.
Yeah. I mean, you talking about going into the clubhouse and beating up the sound system and everything?
No, I mentally skipped over that, unfortunately, because that was a great scene.
Yeah, that was one of my favorites. And I liked... there was an arc to this movie that I had completely kind of forgotten about, and I realized how much I enjoyed it as we were watching it again. But that arc of Billy Bean going from being the kind of GM who doesn't fraternize or talk with his players at all, because he's like, I got to be able to just fucking cut him or send him and, you know, send him down or trade him or whatever, and I can't get involved. To the point where, you know, by the end of the movie, he's, you know, in the clubhouse and he's talking to all the guys, and he's like specifically one-on-one, like, this is what you got to be doing and this is how you do it and everything. It felt a little silly to me by the end of it, where it was like, okay, I get that he wasn't the kind of guy to go in and talk to these guys anyway. Like, his vibe was keep a distance. But once it got to the point where it was like, this needs to start working. Like, you know, when it gets to that end montage and it keeps showing him, like, teaching the guys and teaching them and showing them what to do. And I was like, why weren't you doing this the whole time? Like, why were you letting them go out and play the game, not playing it the way they're supposed to be playing it based on your theories? Like, why did you even let that go on for so long? Like, why were you just waiting for it to fall into place? And then eventually you're like, oh, maybe I should coach them through this so that everyone is on board with this idea. Like, it doesn't seem like the kind of idea that you could really work, like, behind the scenes completely. Yeah. Like, I secretly put together a team of nobodies, and they will go out there and they will win games. Like, you gotta...
Yeah, it's not like Jonah Hill could go out there and help Chris Pratt be a better first baseman.
Yeah. And, I mean, how many of those guys are actually going to listen to him?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, they'll listen to Billy, he's a former player, but they're not going to fucking listen to Jonah Hill. They're going to be like, what the fuck is this kid? What are you talking about? Why would he be telling me what to do? That was a scene I really liked when he talks with David Justice and he just like levels with him about it. Like, come on, man. Yeah. You know, I know you got to be a guy for these guys. Like, you got to be the veteran guy who's on board with this and not just be like, I'm better than whatever you're trying to do. I'm just going to go and do my thing. Like, come on. If you go in, everyone will go in. Yeah. So you have to, man. Come on. I really like that scene.
That was a nice scene.
Something really funny that I absolutely had no idea about. What's his name here? Stephen Bishop is the guy who plays David Justice. Okay. He was an actual ball player. Okay. And he played on like a minor league team in the system for the team that David Justice was on. Okay. And people called him like Mini Justice because of how much he looked like him and swung like him and all that. So in terms of the movie, it was like, oh yeah, let's get him. He's Perfect. He's a few years younger, so he'll play the 2002 version of David Justice, So I thought that was pretty cool. Like,
But-
he's really the best you could ever get to portray him.
Yeah.
Because he also, he played ball, but he went into acting. So it's like, oh, it's the fucking perfect marriage of all of this.
Awesome.
Oh, this is the best ever. So he was really great in it. I mean, all the baseball players felt pretty damn naturalistic.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I don't know that much about any of the real guys,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, I know I've seen that pitcher with the crazy arm windup before.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is fucking nuts. Like, I don't think
It was him that was portraying him.
Yeah, I don't think, because in here I'm looking at the cast list and like nobody is like as themselves or anything like that. But it's like, man, to have to learn to throw like that, to play this guy in the movie.
God. Right.
Like, I hope his arm is okay.
Yeah. And his ankles, like that looks like he could have very easily like rolled his ankle on the mound.
Yeah, it is a wild pitching motion, but it's also such a fucking great, perfect encapsulation of the problem with the old school scouting and the beauty of the Moneyball system.
Yeah.
Where it's like, this guy throws like a fucking weirdo. And it's like, but look at his stats though. Like, he's fine. He's a perfectly adequate. Like, why are you tossing him away?
Yeah.
It's like, because he throws weird.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, then fucking give him here. Like, I loved that. Like, using him specifically as a like beacon of like, this is what we're talking about. Like, idiots passing up perfectly adequate players.
Yeah.
Because they don't do things the right way.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, he looks goofy, but does he fucking get strikeouts or whatever you want him to do? Does he I forget, was he a reliever, I think, or something like that?
Yeah,
But it's
he
like,
was
does
a
he close
reliever.
out a game? Can he keep a win going? Whatever the fuck. Like, why would you care about the fucking arm?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Because that's not how it's done.
Yeah. But I mean, I love that scene when he goes into the clubhouse and beats the fucking sound system down, and he just asks them like, is losing fun?
Yeah.
And then everyone's silent, and he gives them, what for, and whips the bat and, runs out of there and everything. But what were you talking about Billy Bean taking decisive action? Because that's immediately what I thought. Because I was so great. It was like the game loses. He's walking down the hallway. He hears celebration coming from the locker room, and he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And he just goes in and gives him hell. So that was what I thought when you said that. What were you talking about?
Shortly after that, when he just goes on a rampage with the team roster.
Oh, yes. That's something that I would love to look into, like, better. Like, I'm sure I'd have to probably read the book because it would be harder to kind of decipher just from looking at, like, transactions. It's like, I know that the trades weren't all done, like, on that sort of same day. Like, where it was like, oh, I traded Pena, and then I traded this guy. Oh, as great as that fucking scene was, or just Jeremy's gone, too. When he trades him while he's in the office with Art, which is so funny. But it's like, I know that those all didn't happen like on the same day within like an hour of each other, the way that the movie shows it. But it's like, is that really the fucking like tactic he used to get his team on the field?
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, you're not going to play Hatterberg at first base? You're not going to play Hatterberg? Then I'm going to trade the other guy you're playing. Play Hatterberg. Like, that's amazing. That is the fucking coolest, like, putting your foot down moment ever of just, like, play the guy. No. Play the guy. No. Now he's the only guy you can play.
Yeah.
Maybe you should have played him.
Yeah.
Like, amazing. And his trade sequences when he's on the phone and jumping back and forth with everyone at the trade deadline. Like, I am
the trade deadline one, that was good, too.
Yeah, like, I completely understand, like... I wasn't as big a fan of Draft Day, simply because it was like a little cheesy, but I do love those kinds of moments, the like wheeling and dealing, making calls, putting people on hold, leveraging things against each other.
Yeah.
So that whole sequence with Brad Pitt doing it, like, I will take Brad Pitt doing that every day over Kevin Costner doing it from Draft Day.
Good Lord, how many sports movies has Kevin Costner been in?
All of them. But easily my favorite part of the whole trading deadline sequence is when he calls, I forget which team it is, but he calls and tells them that he's offering them someone, and he's like, why would you do that? And he just says, because I'm amazing. Oh my god, it's so fucking, like, his delivery of it is so perfect. And you can like, you could assume that the guy on the other end of the line is like, he's gotta be fucking me
Yeah.
but I can't tell how he's fucking me right now. So I think I need to just take this deal. Like you could see how he worked all those deals. Like again,
Yeah.
not sure if that's exactly how it happened. But in terms of writing it into the movie and having Brad Pitt do it, it was, oh my God, that was so good. And,
and Jonah Hill's little part where Brad Pitt's like, oh, tell him I'm on the phone. And then he's just telling Jonah Hill like everything that he needs to say. And then the slow like fist clench and then like shake and bring it in like
that was what I loved. I wrote into the note specifically. I was like, Jonah Hill getting into it is so good. Like when he's becomes that like partner with Billy Bean, because throughout most of it he's kind of the like, even though he's teaching Billy Bean how to do the Moneyball stuff, you know, like showing him like how he would obtain and this and that, and you know the best ways to counteract, you know, the batting averages. Like we'll replace Giambi with 3 guys whose batting averages add up to Giambi. Like you know, all that. Like even though he's teaching Bean, it really feels like he's like a student of him. And then at that point, it felt like they were partners in this. Like, oh, we're doing this. Like fuck yeah. So yeah, that was easily one of my favorite scenes, is that whole trading. Like, and the one moment when because there's like 2 guys named Steve, like the owner of the team and then the GM of the Indians or something, and he's like, Steve's on the line, like which one? Like why would it be the other one? Like, oh right, okay. Like, just like there's so much going on right now. And there's the other segment of the movie, like the other kind of side bit to it that. At first, I was like, I mean, I knew how this movie ended. You know what I mean? I'm going to talk the hell about it in a little bit. But it was like, as soon as it was like, okay, here's Billy and here's his daughter, you know, she's flying in because, you know, him and her mom aren't together anymore. So, you know, he's doing the single dad thing. And she was wonderful too.
The daughter?
Yes. I thought she was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
But like, their whole little things that like their scenes were so perfectly like saying emotional feels even too much. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't like they were like, oh, like crying to each other or anything big and, you know, really big and dramatic, you know what I mean? But it was like so perfectly just like them being wonderful to each other. You know what I mean? It wasn't a case of like, oh, dad, I don't like you or blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's like she wants to play guitar and he's totally going to buy a guitar for her. And he wants her to play, but she's kind of embarrassed, but he's going to make her do it. You know what I mean? It's
and then he makes
super
her
sweet.
Sing.
Yeah, it's super sweet. And they both play it so well.
The look on his face when she starts singing is like
heartwarming, everything. It was just like, oh my gosh, he loves her. And it's so sweet.
And he's like astonished at her ability.
Like that side story almost feels superfluous throughout the rest of the movie. Like as good as it is, you're almost like, yeah, but the game, the team, the Moneyball, like let's go, what are we doing here? So when it comes into play at the very end of the movie, it's almost out of left field, but it nails it so bad. Yeah. But the like big thing from this story, and I loved the fact that they made the regular season thing be the like climax of the movie. Yes. Because, you know, obviously, if you know anything about the story or the Oakland A's or whatever, they do not win the World Series at the end of this season. Nope. So to have that be like the true like climax of the story of like, and then they're going to have a big old sequence of them playing in the ALDS or whatever and getting to that game 5 and then losing to the Twins. And the fact that is just that one quick little thing right at the end where it was like, oh, and by the way, they didn't do it. Yeah. But the fact that it was like they have this astonishing winning streak going and getting all the way setting. Yeah, all the way to 19 wins, going in for the 20th. Again, having seen it, I knew they were going to pull it off. You know, I knew that they get to 20 and that it's like a big, huge thing. But like, God, that's another moment that his daughter comes into play. Because Billy left the stadium during the 20th game. Well, he never goes. Right. And she's the one who tells him that he should. Yeah. And then that almost ruins it in his mind. I wrote a note later. I thought it was hysterical. It's just so hysterical at how superstitious a guy like Billy is, despite how much he is like rallying against the like old school thinking of all the, and, like trying to be more logical with the thinking instead of being so like baseball lore kind of stuff of like a guy who plays like that will never be good. Oh, a GM who goes and sees the game, they'll always lose. It's like, how could you be that superstitious while employing such like a logical framework to how you're doing it?
Yeah.
But I kind of liked that about him. Whereas like he's clearly, I mean, he's obviously not perfect, but in that sense, whereas like there's a contradiction within him. It's like, but I like it, and I like the fact that he goes back on it. Even like he's like, oh my god, I guess I gotta go. And then he goes and he's like, oh,
across the lane of
fuck.
traffic.
And then when he gets there and they start losing, he's like, oh fuck, oh god, did I wreck it?
So he goes back to the weight room.
And getting to that moment, like that game-winning home run from Hatteberg, like for one, it's so amazing in terms of like you couldn't write that because everyone would think it's fake. Like the fact that is truly what happened is what makes it that much better. Like, if this was a fictional story and that was what happened, you'd be like, oh, of course, because the guy who they never wanted to play comes up to bat and he hits the home run to win the game. And it's like, but that's what fucking happened. And the filmmaking of that moment, the crack of the bat, the silence, that the Brad Pitt's head just snapping up, like realizing like, oh my God, they just did it. It's so good. And I think that scene probably benefited the most from the way that they would cut in real footage from games and stuff. Because that shot of Hatteberg hitting it, running off frame, and you see the pitcher on the mound watching the ball go and just being like, no, fuck. It's like, that is real footage of the guy on the mound realizing what has just happened. Just let the fucking game-winning home run go. Like, that is so cool. But really, all of it, every time they cut to that footage, I was like,
it was like seamless.
It really was. But I mean, that home run, Hatteberg's home run to win that 20th game, and it being like not exactly what Billy wants. Like, he's obviously excited for it, but that whole thing with him and Peter talking about how it's like, none of it matters if we don't win the last game of the season. And it's like, that's such a great like character thing for him, but you do also feel bad for him. Where it's like, you can't even enjoy this. As amazing as it was, like, nobody would have expected this team to be the one to break the all-time record of like win streaks. I like vaguely remember it because at that time in my life I did watch baseball because I was very excited about the White Sox winning 3 years later. So I like vaguely remembered this from real life. And then watching it again is like, wow, that was actually a lot cooler than I thought it was when I was that old. And it explains why, like, I know people that had like Oakland A's stuff. Yeah, really. I mean, that's a story that, like, it goes beyond just like fandom. Oh yeah. It's like, holy shit, how the fuck did they pull this off? It's amazing. Like, as much as, obviously I'm not a huge like LA Kings fan. But when they won in 2012, when it was like they squeaked into the playoffs, 8th seed, and then they just terrorized everyone on the way to winning the cup. And it was just like, holy fucking shit. Where did this come from? Yeah, like that sort of stuff is amazing. It really is. Like, I know in the movie they talk about like, how could it possibly be, hard to get romantic about baseball, blah, blah, blah. But like really just any sport in general, when it's like the ultimate underdog story. It's like, it's hard to not feel pretty like great about it and watching it happen. Like, oh my God, they're really doing it. Like, nobody thought they would do it and they're doing it. Go. Yeah, go. It's super fucking cool. But like this fucking movie, I honestly don't know if I've ever seen a movie that just fucking nails the ending like this one does in every single facet. From the moment that Hatteberg hits that home run. Like, for one, it could be easy to play that scene too cheesy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, and he hit the magical home run. But it's so just like grounded, and it's just like, oh my God, like it's perfectly emotional without going over the top.
Yeah.
And then they lose in the ALDS, and it's like, oh God, what a bummer. Like they technically got Moneyball to work.
Yeah.
But they didn't get to the final fucking thing. Like, oh, how bittersweet that is. And then Billy getting the offer from the Red Sox, having the meeting with the owner of the Red Sox, being offered the most money AGM would have ever had at that point in history for any sport. Yeah. Like that whole thing. Him talking with Peter when he gets back.
Yeah.
And that... the one thing that I had totally forgotten about, because like I remembered that he goes to Boston. I knew that he got that offer.
Yeah.
I knew he got some sort of like huge offer that I thought they kept secret. And then the very end in the text, they show how much that he would have gotten. And I was like, oh, that's right. They do eventually say.
Yeah.
But I liked that they never said it between any of the people. It's like he slides the paper to Brad Pitt. He reads it. He slides the paper to Jonah Hill. He reads it.
Yeah.
But nobody says out loud the amount.
Kind of see a little bit when Jonah Hill looks at it, but you can't really tell.
Yeah. It's like I knew about all of that, and then I knew about that phenomenal final scene of the movie with him driving and putting in his daughter's mix, and her playing the song that technically didn't exist at that time. I did look into that.
Oh, it didn't exist yet?
Yeah, it's a movie. I forget the fucking artist. Like
it was like
it was like
Lena
it was like an Australian artist or something, but it was like 2008 is when that song came out, and she apparently performed that song for her audition. And Bennett Miller was like, that was amazing, and I'm going to let you do that for the movie because fuck it, who cares?
Yeah.
And it works so perfectly, and it's so wonderful. And I don't know whose idea it was for her to sing the "You're Such a Loser, Dad."
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that's not from the song.
Yeah, probably not.
I'm sure that was, her character to Brad Pitt or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's such a fucking beautiful moment there at the end. And, those were the moments that I totally remembered. And I was like, oh, that's right. This movie has a fantastic ending. But the scene when Peter brings Billy to the film room to show him the big giant catcher guy, and his whole thing, I had 100% forgotten about that.
Me too.
And that might be my favorite part of the ending, about how perfect the analogy is to Billy himself. You know what I mean? It's like he's... he tries to run to second base and he falls, and then the whole like, oh, everyone's laughing at him, and he's like, yeah, but look at why.
Yeah.
It's because he doesn't even understand that he cranked it 60 feet over the fence. Like he didn't even see that he hit that home run.
Yeah.
Like
he was just concerned about getting on base.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, that moment, I mean, it looked pretty real. I don't know if that's a real highlight or if they made that for the movie to make such a perfect analogy to him or whatever. But that really was, I was like, this movie fucking nails it. Really, from Hatterberg's home run to end credits is perfect. Absolutely. At least to me. Yeah. And I think that ends Baseball Movie Month on the absolute best terms. You know what I mean? It's not even like a movie where it's like, yeah, it was really good. Ending was okay. Yeah. But it was really good. But it was like a movie that literally just keeps getting better. And then when it hits that final fucking push, that like end half an hour or so of that movie, I was just like, it's so fucking perfect. It's so good.
It really is.
So good.
Did you notice how much stuff Billy Bean shoved in his mouth?
Oh, yeah. Brad Pitt eats in every movie all the time.
He ate so much. And then he had the like chewing tobacco.
Yeah, he had the dip.
Like, it's just like, if it wasn't peanuts, it was like candy or pretzels or a Twinkie. Like,
just cramming it in his mouth. That was the greatest too, because that was when he was like, he told Jonah Hill to go tell Pena that he got traded, and he's like, what about Giambi? And he jams the whole Twinkie in his mouth. He's like, I'll tell him.
Yeah.
Goes out of the room.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's somebody did some silly kind of like
mashup.
No. It wasn't a mashup. They did like a study and saw that it was like movies where Brad Pitt consumes 200 or more calories on screen do better than movies where he doesn't. Like obviously that's not why the movies do better. It's just a hilarious correlation. Like for some reason,
like they're not actually related. But
that's just how it seems to work out. And that is so funny to me. But it's like it's true. He does it all the time, and for some reason, it's not. I mean, I know exactly why it's not repellent. It's because it's Brad Pitt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it was fucking Philip Seymour Hoffman cramming his face full the whole movie, people would be like, "Could he stop for a moment?
Yeah, can he like put the like spaghetti down?"
Yeah. But it being Brad Pitt is just like, oh my god, it's so great.
Yeah.
And so I think that is going to wrap it up for Baseball Movie Month here on Popcorn for Dinner.
Yeah.
This is Jeff.
And Kelly.
You are outside of your mind.